Okay, so we are going to be talking about supporting the selected sites with their HFNY or HFA accreditation visit. The sessions will be recorded and uploaded to the HFN website, and we'll have time for questions at the end of this session. But feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll work to answer them. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to look at what to expect for support from your CA partners, your self-study resubmission, information and things you should know prior to the on-site visit, logistics of the peer reviewers visiting, and what's to come next. So the supports from your CA partners include bi-weekly to monthly webinars to share information and answer any questions that you might have leading up to your on-site review. We have updated the data charts with individualized information for pulling your MIS reports. So there are 15 individualized charts that you'll be receiving specific to your program that will help you take a look at your data and upload more recent information. We will be sharing the accreditation tool. We're working on updating that a little bit, and we'll get that out to programs to help them as they're pulling together this version of their self-study. We'll also send you the accreditation prep guide that can be found on the HFA community under network resources. However, just note that the prep guide is from the last version of the best practice standards and doesn't reflect all the information or updates for the 8th edition. We will be reviewing your self-study to ensure that all elements have been included, and we'll be working together to do documentation review and give feedback prior to your on-site visit. So us at CA will be working on things like reviewing supervision notes, your service plans, cheers. We'll be taking a look at your program improvement plans and taking a look to see if things have progressed since your last site visit in terms of needed improvement. So we have reorganized folders in the SharePoint to reflect the folders by best practice standard. So this is a requirement for the peers to review the self-study. It also helps to be able to organize things in such a way that makes reviewing more efficient for the peers. The less digging they need to do to find things, the better it is. So to help ensure that every best practice standard that is required for the self-study is included, we've broken down the folders by standard and then by second and third order standard as well. So you'll see here, for example, for best practice standard 1, we have 11A, 11B, 11C, and so on, going through each of the folders. Please refer to the folders that have been created for you to guide your uploads, as well as the accreditation tool that we will be sending out to you. You're going to want to leave the other folders that are in your accreditation SharePoint, leave them in there so that you can pull your information from those into the corresponding BPS folders that we have set up now. When the self-study is complete, we will remove those folders that were used during the first round of review. Please note that we are working on updating all the folders, and this should be completed for all programs by March 5th. We did start with the programs who will be visited first, so that theirs are all set and they should be able to start looking and pulling together information for their self-study. Since we have folders for each best practice standards, you'll need to separate your ASR for the narratives that are required at the self-study. So for example, 11A is the first item on your ASR. So you're going to want to copy and paste both the boilerplate language that was created for eligibility criteria and the rest of your specific narrative into a Word document and label it 11A. And then you're going to put that Word document into the 11A folder. Don't include any of the HFNY questions or guidance that's in the ASR. Only include the boilerplate and or your specific narrative. Again, this helps the process run more smoothly so peers can find exactly what they are looking for. You also have an opportunity before submitting your self-study to add to your narratives if you feel they are missing something or want to add more information. You're going to want to reference the accreditation tool and the rating indicators and the best practice standards to be sure that your narratives have all that is included to be rated in. Although PCMs reviewed the ASR and provided feedback on these areas, it's good to take a second look at what you wrote. There's absolutely no need to recreate the analysis or narratives. HFA has confirmed that what was submitted for the CA site visit is acceptable for your self-study and you don't need to redo the narratives. However, it's more of a double check of what you already have to be sure that you are confident that it meets the best practice standards as is when you will be rated on this self-study. So for example, what you put in as the narrative is what they will rate you now based on. Peers may reach out to you to ask for additional information after they receive your self-study, and you can send them anything to help support evidence to your practice. So, for example, when they visited us at CA, they had noticed that one of our PowerPoints for orientation to the multi-site system was missing 2 elements. We went ahead and updated that PowerPoint, re-uploaded it on the website and sent it to them, and they found us to be in adherence with that update that was made prior to them coming on site. So you are able to make those adjustments or send additional information when they're asking questions or you're having that dialogue. But you're going to want to make sure you read over all of the narratives and add to or make any adjustments that's needed so that you feel confident with what you're submitting. So you're going to continue to do that copy and paste onto a Word document for each corresponding standard for those narratives that are in your ASR. So you'll see here the 11B, 12B, 12C, 14A, 14B, 34A, 34B. And you'll see here that I also included the boilerplate language for that measure of retention rate. So again, if there is boilerplate language for any of the narratives within your ASR, you're going to want to include just that and then your specific narrative into that Word doc that you're going to upload into the self-study for the corresponding best practice standard folder. So you're going to want to do the same thing with policies and procedures. So you're going to need to upload individually into each corresponding BPS every single policy. So for example, here, we've created folders that show 12A, 13A policy. So you're going to take that 12A, 13A policy, and you're going to upload that into the 12A, 13A policy. And you're going to do that for every single policy and put them into the corresponding best practice standard folders for that policy. Then you're going to take your policy folder that you already have that lists out all of the policies that we've created, and you can change that label or name to GA6 Policy and Procedure Manual. And then that will be moved into the GA folder. So the peer reviewers want to see each individual policy that goes with the corresponding best practice standards, as well as the full policy and procedure manual in GA6. So the equity plan also needs to be separated and put into its own folder under best practice standard 5. You should really think about updating your equity plan to reflect anything you have done since you submitted it. So think about anything that you've implemented or added to the plan to show those updates. Here's a sample of an equity plan that shows some of the updates that could be made and added to this under that dates and implementation notes, lessons learned, revisions, feedback. So since for some of you, it has been or will be quite a bit of time before you submitted your equity plan, you're going to want to make note of some of the things that you've done over the last several months in terms of those strategies that you developed. And this will just help show adherence to the equity plan, that it's the living document and that you are working on those strategies. The same for the review of the equity plan. So at this time, most programs should have been able to share the equity plan with both their staff and advisory board. So you'll want to put that information into this section of the equity plan where it's review of the equity plan. So you'll update that and then also, have that included in your upload. Note that if you have not shared this with your advisory board, just know that for a 2, at minimum, it has to be shared with your staff. So make it a priority to share it with your staff. and fill out the updates section so that you can show adherence to that standard, that you actually did review it with staff and got that feedback. And then, you know, if you are making adjustments to the plan based on that feedback, you're going to want to say that and then update the plan to reflect any changes that were made. Same thing with the CQI plan. So you should also be updating to reflect any progress that you've made. You can update this right in the MIS and then print and upload or save and upload into the CQI folder or the GA folder for your self-study for the CQI project. So again, it may have been some time since you've, you know, first developed your CQI project. So you're going to want to go back in there and make some updates to the progress. So you'll see here in this one, it shows like some of the status has changed to achieved, put into practice, or there's some that are still active. So you're going to want to take a look and go through and update that, and then either resave it or print it and upload it into your self-study. So again, the MIS reports table has been personalized and updated for each of you. So you'll have your individual set of reports and dates, and we'll be sending those out to you. Some of the reports, you just use what you already have run when you initially submitted your self-study back in the beginning of this year. However, you're still going to want to rerun those reports, like things for your retention and acceptance analysis, because if you showed improvement, you're going to want to upload something that shows that you've made that improvement. And then you can just do an addendum or a little update under the narrative that you were already submitting, just to share that the report was updated to show improvement into acceptance or retention. The other reports that are looking for more recent practice will have you rerun and upload those. You'll get this form with the dates in which you'll need to run those reports. And so we'll just want you to be mindful as you're preparing for the submission of your self-study to be taking a look at your data to make sure that staff are getting that information in, you know, supervisors are taking a look at that, so that when you run the reports, you know, you're meeting those thresholds for the threshold standards, such as home visit completion rate, or the supervision for direct service staff, and so on and so forth. And so, you know, just like you do with the PIs, like running those reports, making sure that you're not missing anything, that data's in there before you run the reports and upload. So once your self-study is all set and you're ready to submit, you're going to be receiving a link. The program managers will, from the HFA, that has a link to the HFA SharePoint. What you're going to do is, at that time, we would remove those folders, like the other reporting or additional reports, the quarterly report folder that we used for the initial self-study submission. We'll remove those and just leave the folders that are labeled BPS 1 through GA. You're going to download that self-study in the HFNY accreditation SharePoint, and then go ahead and upload that into the HFA SharePoint. And we can work one-on-one with you if you need assistance, or take a look at that in one of the subsequent meetings together to see how you can go ahead and download and then re-upload that information. Also, there's no extensions that can be granted for your self-study due date. So, you know, it's really important to plan and be prepared for that submission. Even if that means, you know, you have a deadline of a certain day, that's when the self-study is due to HFA, you may want to give yourselves a deadline a little bit before that, a few days before that, just to be sure that everything is all set. There's no issues, there's nothing missing, that you're good to go and ready for that upload by that due date. So then we'll talk about the other to-dos prior to the on-site visit. So about 8 to 12 weeks before your site visit, you're going to receive an email from HFA requesting a list of your staff and your advisory board members and then their email addresses. So HFA will be sending a survey to staff and the advisory board members prior to the on-site visit. And so on this screen are just some sample questions that are from the survey for both staff and for the advisory board. So you can start preparing to put those lists together now with the names of your staff, their email addresses, names of your advisory board members, their email addresses. So that way, when HFA does reach out to you before, that 8 to 12 weeks before the site visit, that you're prepared to just send that off to them. So prior to your visit, you will be contacted by the peer team to discuss the travel logistics. So they're going to want to know things like the closest airport, what hotel options they have, rental car options. You may also want to think about putting together some lunch recommendation for peers. So when they were here, they did working lunches. And so I gave them a sample menu of different options around here. They placed their orders and then they just needed one of us to go pick it up for them so that they can continue working while they were having their lunch. So you'll coordinate all of that with your peers when they contact you. So the peers will also work with you to discuss the agenda for the site visit. So in March, we're going to be looking at a sample agenda so that you have an idea of the flow of the visit. File reviews is always on the first day. So peers are going to need someone on site to walk them through the MIS, which is where they'll review most of the case records. So things like the home visit log, supervision, service plans, the frog. And CHSR will be requesting a list of all of the peers in advance so that CHSR can go ahead and set them up with guest access so that they're able to log in on their own. However, they will need somebody there that first day to do like a tutorial with them to show them how they can find all of that information in the MIS. There will be some forms that they may need to see outside of the MIS, things such as signed consent forms or the family rights and responsibilities. So the peers are going to send you a draft agenda and then you'll fill in the information for the interviews on that draft agenda. And some of the interviewees, if they're unable to be in person, you can request Zoom. However, they do prefer to have the interviews in person. So, if it's not possible, that's fine. You can let them know it's Zoom, but make every effort to try to do those interviews in person. And so your meeting room should be able to accommodate your staff at once, just big enough to do that. And then just thinking about, in the future, scheduling out or reserving maybe one room that they're able to just stay in for the time that they are on site. So that's what we did here. We had run one room that they were in for the entire time they were here, and people would go to them to do the interviews. We also made sure, they access Zoom on their laptop, but then we had an additional screen to make it a little bit more personal to do the Zoom. So it was on a bigger screen than just the laptop. And then if there are adjustments that need to be made to the schedule for interviewees, if folks, on your advisory board can't make it at a specific time, you'll work with the peers to make those adjustments so that they work for everyone. So the peers will review your self-study leading up to the visit. Again, they're going to reach out to you to gather additional information if needed. And this is a good opportunity to share any additional evidence of practice to show adherence. So peers will request additional info they need so that they can give you the opportunity to be rated in. And so we talked about the example that I used, that we had that missing piece. I was able to, we were able to work together to upload that and get that to them, and it worked out. And that was all done before they were here on site. So anything that needs to be done or updated, you need to do that before they're here on site and provide them that information. So then the peer team will ask for the active caseload list. And for this, they're looking for all the elements that are listed here on the screen. However, if you just run the MIS report for active participant roster, at the time that they ask you for that, It has all of the information you need, and you can just send them that list from the report, or just send them that report that has all of the information that they're looking for. So all sites will have a 3-day visit. The cost will be $3,500 total. So that's a flat rate that includes all of their expenses. So their airfare, hotel, transportation, meals. You will be invoiced after the actual on-site visit. So you'll get an invoice from the national office after your visit has been completed. So you're going to want to consider the budget year that your visit is taking place. So is it going to be in the 23-24 year or the 24-25? And then think about if you need to do a budget spending adjustment to move enough funds to cover the $3,500 for the 2 peers. Again, all of the sites, all 15, are a 3-day visit with 2 peers. So it's just that $3,500 flat fee for all of you. And so you'll want to work with your program contract manager if you need to do a spending adjustment to cover that. Everyone should have in their budget under B8 Other, the HFA fee and peer review line, and that is the line in which this expense would be charged to. So what's next? So in March, we will discuss the sample agenda. We'll take a look at that so that you can see the flow of the visits. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into what to expect for the reviews on site. So, looking at the, file reviews. We're also going to take a look at sample interview questions and also topics that may be part of interviews for each of the roles at your sites, as well as your advisory board and families. And then we're going to look at trends that HFA has shared with us as they were doing site visits with other programs throughout the nation. And so we'll look at what some of those trends are. So for example, they had shared that celebration of, the achievement of family goals is something that programs have missed out on, some of the information pertaining to service plans. So we'll take a look at that next month, just so that you can do some preparing as you're going into or leading up to your visit to ensure that, your program looks good in those areas. So if you have any questions related to setting up an Outlook account, if you're having trouble accessing the HFA SharePoint, you're going to reach out to Claudia, Miranda, Julian. Any questions regarding interfacing with SharePoint or the folders or the self-study, you're going to reach out to your OCFS program contract manager. And then always, Melanie, Suzanne, and I are always available for any additional questions or any support that you might need. So you feel free to reach out to any of us as well. All right. So thank you.